I'm sitting down to watch a video critical of me. Ooh, my favourite subject. This time from someone called Sneaky Cacti, a larger creator than I am, and I'm doing this largely in the hope of clearing up any confusion, helping people to understand what I was going for, and hopefully I'll stop receiving weird messages like this genuine comment I received, which said, "Bottom fetter being bottom fetter," because I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. I think they were trying to call me a bottom feeder. Lovely, huh? Now, criticise me if you want. Be aware I may not be civil back if you just leave an insult, and if you can, please format messages into some form of language. I'm going to get right into it because this response to me comes with this thumbnail, attributing a quote to me, saying, quote, "slow-paced slop," and his video is titled, "Doom the Dark Ages will suck because it's slow-paced." Apparently. And that's kind of amazing, because that quote in the thumbnail, I never said it. It's nowhere in the video he's supposed to be responding to. I don't think it's in any of my videos. You can go and look for yourself if you don't trust me. Handy trick, go down to the bottom of my video that he's supposed to be responding to, click on the More button in the description, and there's a tab there saying Show Transcript. Press that and it will bring up the text of everything I said in that video. You can then press Ctrl F to find that I never said what he's quoted me as saying in either the thumbnail or the title. The words suck or slop, they're nowhere in my video. I didn't even imply what he's quoted me as saying. He's not even paraphrasing, he's just making it up. I did say I was worried and was going to wait for release to see if the game was any good. I have now counted 4 or 5 people doing this exact same thing. This is a creator called Batacanta. Once again, quote in the title, quote in the thumbnail. I didn't say either of them. Though I do agree Doom the Dark Ages is objectively not Doom 2016, you can quote me on that, or at least you could if you knew how quotes work. Here we have someone called Thunderstruck. Terrible name. Someone told me they had responded to me and I couldn't even find their video. I couldn't even find their channel, because it turns out if you search for Thunderstruck, you get a million videos of AC/DC. Once again, quote in the title, and I never said it, didn't even imply it. I also had a look at Klutzy King briefly in another video. Once again, statement attributed to me in the thumbnail, none of which I said. At least they didn't use quotes, you know, baby steps. But I didn't say the game would suck, and I didn't mention my PC in the whole video, nor would I characterise my video as being critical of a game that isn't even out yet. I thought id's latest video just made the game look dubious in some ways and advised people to wait for day one reviews. There are lots of groups on YouTube. There are the YouTube lawyers that went briefly by LawTube, there's BreadTube. Maybe you guys can get together and be LieTube. You can have that one for free, it fits so well. Is this seriously what people want YouTube to be? By these standards, I could quote any of these guys as being in favour of man on donkey love in a thumbnail, and it would be just as accurate as the quotes they've attributed to me. It's really scummy. I'm also getting really bored of talking about this whole subject. Is it even still a response to me from these people if they're responding to things that I didn't even say? But I guess, what were they supposed to do when they're covering a person and that person didn't say anything extreme or catchy enough for a title? Well, you just make it up. You can't just make up quotes and attribute them to other people. You should maybe not do this anymore, I'm serious. If things aren't quotes, don't put them in quotes. At least do what Klutzy King did. He can at least say, that was the impression that person's video gave me. Still wouldn't be true, but it's at least a little bit better. He did a follow-up video where in the title he claims I attacked him for criticising me. No, feel free, criticise away. Just stop lying. Maybe criticise me for the things I actually say instead of things you made up. I criticise you for lying and then you did it again in the follow-up video. So at this point, I think he's clearly just doing it intentionally. If you're a regular viewer of these guys, now you know they're not telling you the truth. If you carry on believing them, that's on you. You've given them carte blanche to deceive you and even rewarded them for it. They're either lying or unhinged and imagine things were said in the video that weren't even there. Now this guy, Sneaky Cacti, has around 15,000 subscribers. His video has plenty of upvotes and he's just misled his viewers twice before the video's even started. How does anyone see this complete lack of ethics as being acceptable? This is below the standard of the worst tabloid journalism. And that isn't even because of ethics from the journalists, it's because they at least have the wit to know not to leave themselves open to legal action. And as a result of these people's content, I end up getting dogpiled, brigaded by people who I presume to be fans of these guys, because in many cases they repeat the exact same untrue things the creators said, because none of them bothered to fact check it. Sorry, but I find all this very difficult to respect in any way. People make mistakes. In the video that started this nonsense, I said 8 to the power of 10 when I maybe should have said 10 to the power of 8. That may sound the same, but it isn't. But these guys just strongly appear to be lying for clickbait. People really upvoted someone repeatedly lying to them. Is that what you're looking for, YouTube audience? Someone to lie to you and tell you what you want to hear? Just 100% confirmation bias, because I don't want to do that.
Y'all saw the title of the video. We are taking a look at yet another awful take regarding Doom the Dark Ages. It seems like there's no shortage of brainlets when it comes to Doom the Dark Ages, and I don't know how to really explain the take we're gonna go over today, because it is the dumbest one I've ever seen before. There's really no other word to use to describe it besides retarded. The guy that we're gonna take a look at today basically just wants to fearmonger about how the game is gonna be bad.
I don't think I at any point said the game was going to be bad. I said I had concerns. I was more trying to inform people than fearmonger, and telling people to maybe wait until release to see if it's worth buying before you put your money down. Pre-ordering games is a bit like buying a pig in a poke, or a cat in a sack if you're Dutch.
I hate to cut this guy off so early, but why is there a GIF down in the corner, begging for likes and subscribes at the very beginning of the video?
Well, that was something I started to do because I find people in videos asking viewers to like and subscribe a bit boring, so I decided to just put that down there and forget about it instead as a way around that. As for the GIF, for a while I did videos where I put up still screens of supporting information, news articles, evidence to support my arguments. I realise you probably don't value that, or even in fact telling the truth, but the GIF, I read that YouTube doesn't like having still screens with no motion on them, and pushes the video down in the hierarchy if you do that, so I started putting a GIF there that I thought people would like, so there was always some motion on screen. I thought, how can anyone object to this lovely, happy dancing lady? But YouTube has taught me that people will gripe about anything. Later, when I moved to doing more gameplay as a way of not getting copyright struck, some of my regulars complained when I took the GIF down. So I get complaints either way. I get complaints if I leave it up, I get complaints if I take it down. And I like my regulars a lot more than I like the people whinging about it. Sometimes I put it back up just to annoy the whingers. In fact, here, have a collage of GIFs of Ana de Armas.
I mean, dude, we are like seconds into this video at this point, and I already feel my brain cells just oozing out of my ears.
Honestly, I'm so tempted to say you could lose the entire brain and it would not affect the quality of your content. And you'd maybe lose 2 grams of body weight. I'm sorely tempted to say, could you make your voice any more lifeless and boring if you possibly tried? I'm almost managing to stay awake here, but I'm not going to do that, even though I'm sorely tempted if you're going to spend the next 15 minutes trying to repeatedly dick punch me.
You don't really get many power fantasy games anymore. A lot of games nowadays, and this is kind of a problem with the Souls-like genre, as much as I enjoy that genre, is you just feel really powerless. And Doom the Dark Ages is definitely not going to be one of those games. You're gonna feel like an absolute powerhouse from the way they describe it. They even outright used the word power fantasy, which is a huge green flag to me.
Is that why people are being so weirdly defensive about this game? That me even having concerns about it intrudes on their personal power fantasy? I more prefer Doom for the challenge than the power fantasy, but that maybe explains some things about the response.
However, I completely understand being skeptical, especially with the state of modern PC gaming when it comes to optimization. But we are talking about a id Software game using the ID Tech engine, so I don't really think there's anything to worry about. The forced ray tracing is an L though.
Well, I'm worried. I have seen what they can do, but when they do something different that looks harder, I worry they may not pull it off. But I certainly trust id more than I do Bethesda, that's true. Doom 2016 released in a lot better condition for me than Fallout New Vegas, that I remember a release version that crashed every 5 minutes or so. Or Skyrim, that I remember the release version, had a broken quest that stopped you being able to finish the game at all. But Doom 2016 still has bugs in it 9 years after release. Here's an enemy being launched into the stratosphere. Here's me falling through a floor. The game frequently crashes right at the end of level 5 when you get pulled into a hell portal in the game, and then maybe half the time the game crashes.
Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I've never crashed on that mission, so...
It probably isn't just you, but it also doesn't appear to be rare either. There are threads on Reddit and Steam and a few other places about exactly this issue. It just goes to show, again for me, the difficulty of getting games this complex to work on the huge number of possible PC configurations. I don't envy the people that have to program games like this and make the drivers for them at all. It must be an absolute nightmare. This game looks like it's going to have to optimise hundreds of possible difficulties. There are 8 sliders allowing for things like customised player damage, enemy damage, the speed of enemy projectiles, and the total game speed. If each slider has, by the look of it, maybe 10 positions, that's something like 8 to the power of 10 possible settings, and they couldn't even manage a flawless game when they were trying with 4.
Okay, man, there is really no nice way of me asking this question. Are your parents related by any chance? They're still gonna optimize the basic 4 difficulty settings. They're just now going to add a slider if you want to customize the difficulty more to your liking. They're not going to go out of their way to optimize every single little combination you can make with this slider. There is no way this guy's this much of a dum-dum. If you play around with the slider and create an unbalanced experience, that is your own fault. And if you complain about that, then you eat paste. Like,
I said optimise, as in to make something as good or effective as possible, not game balance. If you're going to call me stupid, it doesn't really help your case if I have to explain to you what words mean. So you accept that there could be up to 100 million setting combinations, but your rebuttal is, seriously, that they can just make sure the main 4 are working okay and leave the rest potentially broken. Because that's a terrible argument. Seriously, that's your defence. It will be fine if they can't bug fix it. They can just release the game broken. Of course! How did I not think of that option? Yeah, oddly, that is precisely what I was concerned about. What's the point of even having the modes if they don't make them work properly? So id make it so this game can be made slower, maybe for people with disabilities or for people who are struggling, but the modes may not work for them. This is insane. Id seem to take pride in their work, and I can't imagine them intentionally releasing a broken game, but you're defending the idea of them releasing it broken. At this point, I have to ask, what would make you not support id? Some of the critics in my comments had far better points than this, because not all options or changes will necessarily generate bugs, like if a game gives the player the option of choosing a name. There are a huge number of possible choices, but whatever you pick, it may only be one single line of code. And not much should really go wrong. That's the best case scenario for many of the settings in Doom the Dark Ages. A lot could be pretty safe. Can't say for sure because I've never used id's game engine.
speaking of terrible, and I hate to roast somebody's gameplay because I know it's not really anything to do with his video or the points he's making.
But spoiler, that's exactly what he did. Jesus, he sounds like Milhouse from The Simpsons. There are a worrying number of signs that the focus in Doom the Dark Ages will not be on the gameplay, including the giant mech fights and the dragon.
So you're worried that the focus of Doom the Dark Ages won't be on the gameplay because they're adding more gameplay with a dragon and a mech. This makes no sense at all. Bruh.
If people don't understand, it may be on them or it may be on you, and the fact that some people didn't understand what I was saying means it's maybe on me. I meant it more in the sense that a lot of the focus on Doom the Dark Ages seems to be on things other than the core Doom guy running around and demons gameplay loop. Looking at this footage, there are just neon markers and tat covering almost the entire screen now.
I mean, I guess so, dude. I mean, bro, this guy is just so desperate to find things to complain about, it's honestly pathetic.
I just kind of find the neon of Doom Eternal really ugly. It kind of makes the game look cheap to me, and I have sensitive eyes. The game can give me a literal headache, and it looks like they're carrying that through to Doom the Dark Ages. I hope there's an option for a palette swap to something a bit more dark and muted, because it looks like an 80s disco was thrown up on the screen, and I kind of prefer the option of some dark reds in there, maybe blood coloured instead of neon red. It would be topical and a bit gothic and very Doom. Why does it have to be neon? Granted, neon is high contrast, but I find it a bit trashy. In Doom Eternal, you could choose the UI palette, and I think you could choose from maybe 5 or 6 options, and they all looked gaudy and hideous to me.
First of all, keep this clip in mind because it's gonna come in handy a little bit later. Second of all, this game in the fastest speed is much faster than Doom 2016. Nice try though.
Is it? That one is funny, because the excuse I've heard from many people is that this is just a developer video and they may have slowed it down. But by the same token, they could have also just sped up the parts that look fast, no? So if you look at the footage and say, that looks fast, that's okay, that's fair comment. But if you look at other parts and say, that looks slow, that's not okay. So only positive responses are allowed, yes? But these two claims have the exact same supporting evidence.
This feels like a parody.
In their video, id describe Doom the Dark Ages like this.
In Doom Eternal, you felt like a fighter jet. In Doom the Dark Ages, you'll be an iron tank.
You remember that clip I told you guys to keep in mind earlier? This one.
For me, who really like Doom 2016, this game looks glacially slow. It's like a snail on downers. It even still looks slow on the highest possible speed settings.
He acknowledges that this is meant to be a more slower paced game, but yet earlier he was complaining about this?
I found this section of your video confusing because to me, that isn't a contradiction at all. Id's video makes the game look really slow in places to me, and that may or may not be what it's going to be like on release. I don't want the game to be really slow, and if that was id's intention for it to be like that, I don't like the sound of that. I don't think that even was their intention though. Hugo Martin himself says it in their video. But you were the one arguing that this game can be made faster than Doom Eternal, like that's a good thing. Then you say,
my guy, not every single game needs to be fast-paced.
Agreed, I don't want Civilization to be paced like Doom is, but it sounds like it will be fine for you if Doom the Dark Ages is very slow on release, and it will also be fine if it's fast. So is there anything this game could do to lose you as a fan? Because if not, that is one of the many problems of being a fan, I'd say. If not, I don't genuinely think you can give an objective opinion of this game. There's a famous quote, reason cannot defeat emotion, and emotion can only be displaced or overcome by stronger emotion. That for me is the problem of being a fan. In the strong emotion and the power fantasy, reason has a tendency to leave the building. For most of you, I hope the game exceeds your expectations, but considering the response, I can't say I wouldn't find it in some way hilarious if the game is a disaster when it comes out and it takes your money and laughs at you, because maybe you were fool enough to think a private company won't rip you off and has your best interests at heart. Just ask Mick Gordon about how trustworthy he found id to be. But, I mean, if you can't trust Microsoft, who can you trust?